less spirit, fullest control. Confident living, bright.
I'm Mike Costello, and I'd like to talk to you in the next few minutes about work. Most of us have jobs that we go out of the house to. Others do our work at home. Why is it that you work? Why do you do what you do? If you answer that question saying that you work for a living, or you work to pay the bills, you work for a salary, for the benefits you get, or for the perks, I'd like to share with you the idea and the concept that you are underpaid, not underpaid by the one who pays you the wage, but underpaid by what you can gain from the experience of work. We say that we live in our minds and not in the world. The world is the place in which we inhabit and have our life experience, but what goes on in our minds is really the important issue. And the way that we think about the things that we do, the occurrences of our life, determine the quality of our being. If your vision of work is something that you do to earn a living, to pay bills, a place to go that maybe you enjoy and maybe you don't, but the real point of your going is to gain income or to gain some benefits, you are truly being shortchanged and your vision is extremely narrow. We are not in the process of making a living as much as we are in the process of making life, having a life. And work is an expression of our life. So much of our time is spent at work. For those who work outside of the home, for most people, we spend a third of our time at work or more. And with commuting and coming and going and all of the kinds of commitments that most of us have in our jobs, we are giving so much of our lives to our work experience. Work has to be and needs to be a type of experience that gives you something that you can give, not only in exchange for the income and salary that you earn, but so that you can give of yourself and receive back something far more important than income. Receive back satisfaction, receive back the fact that you feel that you are accomplishing something. For most of us, the jobs that we're in were not planned. Perhaps for a few people, they planned to do what they are doing, but for many of us, our job became something as we went along. We got a job when we got out of school. We got another job, a promotion, our position changed. In other cases, people actually prepare for what they do and then get into those jobs. But so often, people find that their work, the situation that they have in their work, becomes less satisfying and becomes very monotonous. We need to have a change of concept and idea about work and what it is. We have a concept, especially in the West, and especially in the United States, a wonderful concept that encourages us to compete and to work and to earn, which has created a wonderful economic system. But that financial economic system has spiritual implications as well. And there is an economics of spirit that must be fed, as well as the economics of the physical sustenance that we have in life. We have something in the West that some people call the success syndrome that is created when we go to school. We begin the process by teaching children that they have to excel, they have to do well. It's imperative that they do that. And when they go to school and they get their report card, we strive in so many cases to have children earn A's and B's. And if a child earns a C, we encourage them to earn a B. If someone is failing or earning a D, we encourage them to make a C or a B or an A. And we're constantly training young people to excel, excel, excel. Many, many times in this attempt to train our children to excel, we are creating in them the idea that success has to do with accomplishing something in the outer. It has to do with getting higher grades. It has to do with having a more powerful job in the sense of worldly power. It has to do with making more money. And certainly those things are important and a major part of our work. If making money is important, that can be an ingredient of your work. But it must not and should not be the end and the motivation through which you have the process of work. There are two people that I can think of that have a magnificent expression of work in perfect expression of life. One is in the movie that we're all familiar with, The Sound of Music. In that movie, Julie Andrews portrays someone who is always fulfilled, always satisfied and always happy, regardless of what she's doing. Whether she's in the Abbey or taking care of children, regardless of whether she's unemployed, whatever it is that she's doing, she is enthusiastic and she is fulfilled in the process. A second person that I think is a great example of work made visible in a loving sense, in a spiritual sense, is the very popular saint of the Catholic faith, St. Teresa of the Child Jesus, or of the St. Teresa of the flowers, of the roses. St. Teresa wrote a wonderful spiritual book that talked about finding joy in every kind of work. And in finding joy, we find happiness, and we are then able to give to whatever it is we are doing, and in turn we receive back, because this spiritual economics of doing something and getting return for it, much like in the physical sense, we perform a job and we are paid a salary, and we take that salary and we spend it to buy something. It creates circulation of physical money in the economic sense in the outer, but in the spiritual sense, our work needs to be something that we can give to and that we can receive back, so that there is this constant inflow and outflow of happiness and satisfaction in what we do. St. Teresa believed that we could be happy in whatever we were doing. She talked about being happy when she was scrubbing the floor, or being happy when she was writing a letter, or being happy when she was doing a task that she was given that was more constructive and more demonstrative in the outer sense. Her point was that no matter what we do in terms of work, that we do it with love, that we do it with grace and happiness, and that as we give out in this way, we receive back in a magnificent and wonderful way. In so many cases, we are spending time in a life's work that does not give us any satisfaction. It may give us security, it may give us financial resources and rewards, it may give us benefits. But if it is not giving us soul satisfaction, if we're not feeling that we're truly contributing something and enjoying what we're doing, then it is time wasted. We are being shortchanged, not in the financial sense, but in a spiritual sense. We're being shortchanged within ourselves, and that shortchanging, because of the work that we're doing, is having an effect on our mind, on our spirit, on our physical being. We know that physical illnesses come about because of mental anguish and difficulty. We know that stress, negative stress and tension, creates illness, heart disease, ulcers, and a myriad of other diseases, maybe cancer. It creates in us a physical condition that has a damaging effect. Within us, it creates a negative effect when we're doing something that is drudgery, that creates tension and stress. It creates for us a life experience that is not positive and that is truly negative. And we continue to move along with that short change spirit and with that narrow vision. And as life goes along, we begin to feel more and more hopeless. We begin to feel more and more trapped. We begin to feel more and more like we're giving less and less. And in turn, we feel that we're getting less and less. And life has no true meaning for us. Our work must be an expression of joy, of love, and of giving. It doesn't matter what your work is. It doesn't matter whether you choose to be a vice president, a plumber, a waitress, a student, or a homemaker. Whatever it is you choose to do, you must make of it a joy and make a commitment to do what you want to do that is truly giving in the process. And in return, you will receive an inflow and an outflow of what you need for your soul satisfaction. Maybe you're at a point in time where you need to make a change in terms of the work that you do. Maybe you don't need to make a change in terms of the work that you do, but you need to make a change in terms of the attitude that you have about the work or the job that you do. If you're in a job that you just dislike immensely, maybe it's time to just give it up. That sounds like a very brave thing to do, and certainly it is. But you have the choice to make a decision in your life, no matter where you are. Perhaps you're doing something that is much more powerful in its position, and you feel that you'd like to be doing something much more simply. Maybe you need to go back to school. Whatever it is that you need to do, examine your work life Ask yourself why you're working. And if you are working just for a living, just for a paycheck, just for income, if you're doing something that is giving you no soul satisfaction, then it's time to make a change. It's time to detach yourself from that environment and to reattach yourself, affirm yourself to some other kind of work. St. Therese and the character that Julie Andrews played in The Sound of Music both had what was called a vocation. A vocation is usually used in the sense of religious life or in other professions that are principally helping professions, but it means a calling. Well, in reality, all of us should have a calling to the job that we have, regardless of what it is. And if you don't feel that calling, if you don't feel that satisfaction, then I invite you to examine why it is you really work and be brave enough to make some changes in direction, if not direction in terms of where you work and the kind of your work you do, then in the attitude that you have. There's a saying that goes, "Here lies the body of Andrew Murray, who cobbled shoes to the glory of God for 40 years. That simply says that this man enjoyed what he did. He may not have made a great deal of money, but he was very happy in what he did. And he did it with dedication, with pride, and with appreciation for what he was doing for himself and for others. The same is true the vice president or president of a corporation. The same is true for a teacher or a baker or in any job or profession. Make it a vocation. And as you do, the divine part of you will be fed and shared. And as that divine part of you is fed and shared, you will receive back greatly from what comes into your life. You live in your mind, not in the world. By changing the way that you think, you can empower yourself to find the job that you need, to change the job that you don't want, or to change your mind right where you are, so that where you are in your unhappiness, in your unfulfilled state of consciousness and work, can become a fulfilling and positive state of consciousness and mind. The choice is always ours. We live in our minds and not in the world. And so I'd like to invite you to examine your own life, take a look at your work, and decide whether or not what you're doing is truly what you feel called and led to do. And know within yourself that because of who and what you are as a child of God, you are empowered and strengthened to be guided and directed in new ways, new roads, new jobs, and new thoughts, if that's what is to be. I'd like to pause at this point in the program and enter into a time of reflection and prayer. We believe in prayer as a centering force, and we believe that that centering force connects us with that which is divine. And so we'd like to invite you to enter into a time of prayer with us. Eternal God, we gather together in the awareness of your divine presence and your infinite intelligence to guide and direct and order our lives. Come and be in the midst of our consciousness. Make us aware of the work that we do, and help us always and everywhere to make the work that we accomplish work of joy and happiness, fulfilling to ourselves, giving of ourselves, and sharing with ourselves and others. We ask these things in the name of faith, in the name of hope, in the name of love. Amen.
That was a wonderful concept of working for the joy of working, and the money comes. I think someone wrote a book about that. Do what you like and the money will follow. But that's such a good idea that so many people fail to see.
I think it's an important concept, especially in New Thought. Metaphysicians and people who are involved in New Thought are great at studying abundance and prosperity. And of course, there are specific techniques that work very effectively because they are universal laws that are available. And so often we spend time, I think, in this movement showing people how to live in the consciousness of prosperity and abundance. But we short-circuit the teaching process because we show people sometimes how to create abundance, but without a consciousness of prosperity and abundance and a fulfilling awareness of what they're doing, they can get involved in making a lot of physical money and having physical needs met and not be very happy.
Yes, yes, and unless they have the joy of the work, of their work involved in their heart, then it's just that, it's just work. And it's not the joy of living. And we're missing out on so many hours a day of joy of living if we just go to work just for the paycheck. That's what I heard you saying.
Mm-hmm. Very definitely. In the prophet, Gibran makes a wonderful statement. He says, love, our work is love made visible. And if your work is not love made visible, then you better find another kind of work. But that's a very difficult decision for most of us to make, because it has to do with having confidence in our own ability and the ability that we have through divine mind to guide us and direct us to another job. It's not always easy to change jobs, but it's necessary.
Yes, it is necessary. And I think we're just afraid sometimes of not finding another job, of not finding what we're seeking. And if we truly know in our heart what we want, then we'll find that. I remember once years ago when I was about 20 and I applied for a job in a department store, and a girl who had her bachelor's degree also applied, and she didn't get the job and I did. So I asked the personnel director, why did I get this job? Because I really wanted to know how they're thinking there. And she said, well, you were enthusiastic about the company, the store, and you knew exactly what department you wanted to work in. It taught me early on in life the concept that you were just describing, to know what you want and then work hard, extra hard for that. And then the promotions follow and so forth. And we sometimes in today's society, we're so fear-filled because work doesn't seem to be available for everyone. And it's true, work is not available for everyone, but something would be available for everyone.
Something is available for everyone.
Yes.
And the economy is constantly evolving. One of the exciting things today that we see is that the major growth in jobs is really in the service sector,
Yeah.
which is a process of giving, although some people say that from the standpoint of physical economics, we're all going to be washing shirts pretty soon,
Yeah.
and that won't work either, and that's not going to happen. But it is a process of getting into a kind of work, a kind of vocation that is both satisfying and fulfilling, and one that we're led and guided to. And divine mind and spiritual centering and balance are very important to this whole process. If someone finds themselves in a position that they are just simply there to earn enough money to pay the bills, or they're there because of the power and the prestige, or they're there because of the perks, which is the power essentially, then they need to center themselves in the presence of God, ask to be directed, decide what they would like to do, and then be guided and be brave enough to make the step that's necessary. And that doesn't mean to be irresponsible and simply quit your job and
Yeah.
walk away. It does mean to begin the process. And having a job and what we do in our job is extremely important. And jobs don't always have to do with income either. We have people who work in the homes. We have people who work for very low income jobs, but love them very much and receive a great deal. The cobbler that we mentioned.
Yes, yes. But as we see success in life, regardless of what status of life, what type of work, the successful ones are those who work for the joy of working, and then the money follows and the promotions follow and the new or different type of work follows. Whatever we, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. As we think we're going to be, then we will be. If we think we'll be successful, we'll be successful. And those people who just talk about prosperity, I don't put much credence in what they have to say, because, as you said, prosperity isn't the answer. It's the joyousness of the work, and then the prosperity follows.
Absolutely. And prosperity and abundance really have to do with having our needs met.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to do with the accumulation. And what our needs are always determined by us. And so what one person may determine to be their needs are far different than another's. And I think when we look at success so often, especially in the West and in the U.S., we're looking at success in terms of position, power, and money.
Yeah.
And there are many, many people who don't need those things. And that's not to say that those who need those things or seek after those things are in any way better or worse than those that don't. I have absolutely no problem with people who live very prosperous outward lives.
Yes.
And but I also have no problem with people who live very simple lives,
Modest.
because that is their choice and that is their level of success. Success is not the kind of stereotypical success that we thought so often, and that New Thought teaches very often in
Yeah.
terms of prosperity and abundance. And success is having that position, having that money, having the car. If you want a car, that's a reasonable expectation in life, and the universe will give it to you. If you want a Cadillac or you want a Volkswagen or anything in between, that's a personal decision.
Yeah.
And for many people, they would just as soon have the Volkswagen and they're just as happy. For others, they may want the Mercedes or the Cadillac, but if this seeking after that car becomes the focal point of life, and then there's no joy, and there's no giving and receiving, and there's no fulfillment, and there's no service, and there's no presence of God, then the job or the car is idle.
It's a hollow victory when they do receive it, because there's never enough. And we know those people who nothing is ever enough for them. Whatever they want and get, then before they really receive what they wanted, they want something else. When they know they're receiving that, then they want something else. And it's not like setting new goals, the type of person I'm describing. It's never being happy with what they achieve, because if it's just material things, then they're not happy with that.
That's true. The other issue that I think is important is that many successful people from a material standpoint are unfulfilled because of their own feeling within themselves of inadequacy, and the fact that their inner feeling of self-esteem is so low that even though they have the things that they've sought after, they have the job, and they have the money, and they have the car, and they have the house, within themselves, they still feel inadequate. They still feel unworthy. And so the process of our claiming our worthiness and enhancing our self-esteem because of who we are as children of God is fundamental to getting our internal house in order before we worry about the externals.
That is the secret. Of feeling the oneness with God, the whole, of feeling the spirituality within us. And it's not churchianity, it's the spirituality of the individual link with the divine within and the divine God, the whole. Then, when they have that, they have, the work is joyous. The work is done for the glory of God, for the glory of the work, just for the joyousness of accomplishment. Not necessarily achievement, but daily accomplishment of just doing that job well.
And it comes back to the issue that we talk about so often, is what happens inside us.
Yes.
Then our work in the exterior or in the outer form of life has a positive and wonderful impact on the inner, inside us. And that's where it really counts.
Yeah. There's so much more to, very often we think money is the answer to everything. There's so much more than that. And as we go through life and see the success of those people around us, we can see that those who are happiest are those who have that inner knowing that they're doing what they really want to do.
Absolutely. And money is very easy to make.
Yes.
And I think people who use the principles understand that, and that the abundant supply of material needs is always met. And we determine what that level of need is and what we want out of life and out of the universe. But beyond that, it's having the things that we have, which is relatively simple, but enjoying those things, being happy in them, and knowing that the process of life is fulfilling and one of sharing, and that we are divine, and that we're divine no matter where we are in the economic spectrum. The economics of life is not important, but the spiritual economics are tremendously important.
Yes, and the next step is daring to step forward into whatever it is we want from wherever we are at any given point in time. Just knowing that that we have to make that first step. And also of leaving our troubles behind when we go from one area to another. I remember many years ago when I worked in for a large company, and I had children at home who were a very big responsibility for me, as all children are for parents. And so I would leave my troubles on a bush in the front of the building, as there was a certain bush, and that bush didn't wither and waste away either. It could take my troubles every day, and I would hang those on the bush, and I would leave all the cares of my family behind and just go into the office fresh. And then when I left the office, I left the office things on that same bush and took my family back again, and it worked quite well for me in that way. Mm-hmm. Well, we each have to have our own little a modus, and if we do, then whatever gives us the joy of living, then that's what we need to do, and we need to search until we find what that is.
And we need to bring that joy into our work.
Yes.
And we need to share it with those around us, and we need to make it a part of the fiber of whatever job we have.
Yes, and above all, to teach children along those lines, to teach children the joy of accomplishment and achievement, and not just if you don't do that, you'll get a licking, or if you'll do that, you'll raise your allowance, or if you'll do that, I'll pay you a certain amount. but just to teach them by example the joy of accomplishment and of living and the pleasure of achieving whatever it is we achieve. And you used Teresa, the little flower, as a wonderful example, and also Mother Teresa is a wonderful example there. Those saintly women taught us a great deal, and there are those we can look to in life. And you, Dr. Costello, are a good example of that, because you have a great joy of living, and you don't ever seem harassed or overworked. And yet I know you have a grave responsibility in your everyday workaday world, plus your church work.
Well, I think it is a process of applying the spiritual principles that we know to be true and then living them out. And part of what we feel is important in this ministry and have demonstrated for a long time is that we have to walk the talk. It's not enough to just talk about what these principles are. We have to live them. And so we all do. You have, I have, the people in our church, and many others around us have. In my situation, as you know, I have walked away in the past from when I was president of a major corporation, a very successful corporation, and felt that it was not the place for me to be any longer, and resigned and left it, and in a very short period of time was involved in another similar company doing something far better. And so making those decisions that are difficult and can be very life-changing and life-threatening become life-empowering. And we have to be able to demonstrate that. I think it's important.
And daring to step out. And I know you had bills to meet and expenses that you had to meet, but yet you dared step out to do that which you really wanted to do and leave behind that which was no longer fulfilling.
And the importance there is to remember always that the abundant supply of the universe is available to us. God is never going to leave us destitute. We may cause ourselves to be destitute because of a misunderstanding of the universal laws, but God will never abandon us. And I think we need to really focus on that fact that God's abundant supply is available to us, most importantly in the form of ideas and direction. What we do with it can earn us a great deal or earn us whatever we need, but we need to have that connectiveness with God, and we need to know that success doesn't have to do with power, position, or money. And we need to teach our children that.
Wonderful.
Teaching children is one of the most important things that we do, I think.
Yeah, thank you. This has been a wonderful talk that you've given, and thank you very much.
Okay, we want to thank you for joining us and allowing us to share these concepts of work and success. Reverend Freelander and I believe that our work and our success is based upon our relationship with God, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.